Welcome to the Discover Health podcast, where we explore the power of gut health, nutrition, and lifestyle to help you feel your best every day. I'm Dr. Josh Sharp, your guide on this journey to better digestion, more energy, and overall well-being. Each week, we'll dive into expert insights, practical tips, and real-life strategies to help you discover health. Ready to start discovering? Let's hit the trail. Welcome back to another episode of Discover Health Podcast. Joining me today is a very special guest and a new friend, Dr. Todd Watts. Dr. Todd, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
So you may know Dr. Todd Watts as the doctor's doctor, as the Parasite Guy, as one of the founding docs behind cell sciences and microbe formulas. Or maybe you know him as an expert speaker on foundational medicine and overcoming chronic illness. Dr. Todd is a national board certified chiropractic physician, foundational medicine practitioner, and he's also licensed with the Pastoral Medical Association. And he's the owner of Total Body Wellness Clinic in Meridian, Idaho. His passion for helping others stems from his own journey in overcoming struggles with allergies, arthritis, Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme disease, parasites, and many other chronic health issues he developed all before the age of 40. On his journey to treating Lyme disease, Dr. Todd went through cyclical patterns of feeling good for short periods of time and then crashing. He couldn't get better and stay better. And then one day he met a practitioner who told him that parasites were likely the root cause of his symptoms and preventing him from being truly healthy. So as Dr. Todd followed protocols to treat parasites, he experienced massive shifts in his health that weren't possible before that. This is when he realized that addressing parasites is a vital but an often overlooked element in overcoming chronic illness. Today, Dr. Todd is happily married with 4 amazing children. He has his health and his energy back, and he's dedicated to helping others who are struggling to achieve the same. He's a sought-after podcast, summit, and docuseries expert speaker on the topics of parasites, Lyme disease, and overcoming chronic illness. Thanks again, Dr. Todd, for taking the time to join me today.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to be part of this.
So I wanted to start with kind of your journey, how you ended up where you're at today. And I love asking this question of young chiropractors. I love asking this question of chiropractors who've been in the game for a long time, but was there a pivotal experience or some type of aha moment for you that led you to want to become a chiropractor?
I don't think there was any type of like, hey, this is my one thing. I grew up in that realm. My mom was always holistic from that standpoint. In the 70s and 80s, we would go to the chiropractor. The doctor I would see, Dr. Baum, was just fantastic. He did a lot of nutrition, muscle testing. And so, I mean, there'd be a Saturdays where we were in a basketball tournaments and we'd go in between games to his clinic and get adjusted to just keep that health. And so I just always been exposed and more around it to where, it's interesting. In my 20s, I went and got my degree, and I was pre-med at the time, and I was getting ready to apply for med school. I had my letters of application all done, recommendation. Letters of recommendation all finished, ready to go to apply to medical school. But something that's like, okay, I can't quite do this. And for some reason, I don't know, it didn't dawn on me to think about chiropractic school at the time, because that's where I'd always gone, is to chiropractors. So I decided to go more in the finance route. And later on, when the markets crashed in 2008, it allowed me to say, okay, hey, look, I was in real estate at the time, mortgage lending. What do I want to do now? Now I'm 40, 41 years old. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to chiropractic school to get my doctorate, focus on more internal medicine from a naturopathic process. Naturopaths didn't have licensing at the time. This was back in 2013. And so they didn't have like the same rights as chiropractors did in the state of Idaho. And so I thought that would be the best route for me to go down. And so I went back to Cleveland Chiropractic School in Kansas City to learn from the great Dr. Milton Dowdy, on his technique in chiropractic plus kinesiology, and really learned how to work with the body in multiple avenues. So structural, of course, we do as chiropractors, but Also looking at the muscles, tendons, fascia, emotions, the trauma, looking into how the body functions from chemistry value of what could be creating the problems and those fixations, chiropractic subluxations from more of an internal subluxation aspect of, oh, it's you're eating this food that's creating this problem that's then causing the physical issue versus just attacking it from just chiropractic, which goes back to our roots of trauma thoughts and toxins, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up kind of the visceral somatic, so stuff happening inside causing structural issues or physical issues on the outside, or stuff on the outside, amount of visceral causing stuff inside because, it can really come from both angles. And if you're focused only on one angle, I think you're missing so many aspects that could be addressed and maybe could help a person get better faster. So you're in chiropractic school, and then you're kind of taking, it seems like right off the bat, you're kind of moving into a more of a functional medicine, holistic nutrition type of approach instead of just focusing on the structural chiropractic. But how did you get into parasites? Did you have worms or something?
So, yeah, I mean, I went into chiropractic school knowing I was going to do more internal stuff, right? I was taking the courses from the chiropractic internal medicine program that they have, and to looking at functional medicine at the same time. At 40, I already had a lot of severe wrist pain, back pain, and it hurt. It hurt. I couldn't do the traditional chiropractic stuff. But I knew it was more, right? I dealt with allergies, I dealt with chronic headaches, I had all these other health issues in chiropractic school. So when I was in chiropractic school, I went to a conference. Dr. Alan Lindsley in Wisconsin was down speaking, and talked about Lyme disease. And that's where I was first introduced to Lyme disease. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have all these symptoms of Lyme and Babesia. And that's where I first got kind of like Babesia is a co-infection with Lyme, but it's a protozoa, which means it's a microscopic parasite. Well, after I graduated a few years later, then I was visiting at the doctor down in Texas, Matt Buckley, and we were talking about, okay, my chronic Lyme stuff, and he had that, and we are going through that process, and it's like, hey, you got parasites. That's what's creating some of your problems. I'm like, okay, you need this specific product called Mimosa pudica. Well, it was really hard to get at the time. Nobody had it in stock, and so that started my deep dive down into parasitic infections and their relationship with the immune system. And that's what I put together is like, oh, I have all these people that have been treated for Lyme disease, seen 50 doctors or 20 doctors, and they just, they still this cycle, right? They do well and they crash. They do well and they crash. They're always on IVs or antibiotics or, herbals and things. And then what I realized is when you look at the immune system, it's a dysregulation. The T helper 1 cells, or Th1 process that's supposed to take care of the protozoans and the bacteria and Lyme and viruses and stuff isn't functioning, right? And so when you look at it, is the Th2 was suppressing it. And that's what parasites upregulate T helper 2 cells that suppress Th1. So once I just addressed the parasitic infections, then the T helper 1 cells came back up to function better and then put everything else at bay. And then I stopped the cycling aspect of these infections. And so, it's like you asked, okay, back to your original question. Well, parasites, how'd you get parasites? How'd you know, right? Well, I lived in South America for 2 years. That's one thing. So I was up in northern Argentina, up by Bolivia, and I definitely got exposed to stuff there. But we can get exposed to it here too in the United States through flea bites, tick bites, mosquito bites, through our food supply, which is worldwide, um, and just from contact with animals. Just it's more rampant than we think. Not near as rampant as it is, say, in a third world country where it's just right in your your food supply crazy and as well as your water supply. But it definitely is here. So uh, going down that rabbit hole of treating it and working through my health issues, man, my life changed dramatically.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Mimosa Pudica, you said it was hard to get. You knew you needed it. It was hard to find.
Mhm.
So I think this will, kind of work nicely into the next question. But how did your background in chiropractic, functional health influence the creation of cell core biosciences and microbe formulas?
So when I was in school, the first year you have these really tough courses. One is called, and it's biochemistry. It's our class where we had almost a 50% either failure or dropout rate of that class. People just retake it because they're doing so bad. But we also had the highest board pass rates from 96 to 100% on the boards. The average for the four nationwide schools was 71% on biochemistry. So we were really good, but it's because people had to retake the courses. Well, I spent a lot of my time deep diving into biochemistry. It really resonated for me. It was awesome. And it ended up second semester. I'm teaching a supplemental instruction class for um, that first semester of biochemistry, and then as I got through second semester, then I was teaching both Biochem 1 and Biochem 2. So that helped me understand really how our body works, how our body metabolizes, whether it's fats, proteins, carbohydrates, just how our organ systems work and our cells work with mitochondrial function. And so, the way I looked at starting a business and starting a company is like I love how to approach it from that metabolic process or a biochemistry view of creating products. And so cell core, the core of the cell is the mitochondria. That's how I look at it. And so that's how I created cell core. And mitochondria function is so important for optimal health in so many different ways and the different roles it takes and plays within the human body and the cells. So that's what I did there. I mean, I just started it there. I started with one product called Mimosa Pudica, and started bringing that in and bringing more light to how much that helps people's health, which is the Pair One product for Cellcore. And then I formulated Pair Two, which is an Ayurvedic formula that treats the three different doshas or body types in Ayurvedic medicine. And then brought in some binders and just started the drainage process with the liver kidney product and started developing just the whole line out over the course of the next few years after that.
Yeah, just your average kid in school. Kid becomes teacher of the class that he was taking that everyone else has struggled in, and then kid starts huge, company to help others with their biochemistry
Yeah.
issues happening inside of their body. I think so many people can relate to that.
Except that I'm not a kid. I was 41
Well,
when I was
yeah.
in school, right? Not, I wasn't, I was, they called me Gramps in school because I was the old guy in the class. Everybody else is 15 years younger than me. But it was great because going through this process really helped me to change my life around, right? So I was in practice by then for 4 years. And that's when Cellcore Biosciences started after 4 years. And I did it, really created it by accident. I never anticipated ever doing this product line, but I did it because there wasn't anything that really worked on the market that I needed to move me forward in my own health as well as my patient's health. So
Yeah.
that was really the big stem of doing it, and I did never anticipated it to grow the way it did or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing the story of why people are doing what they're doing. And so many of these, transformational practitioners that have gone on to do great things and help lots of people, they started with their own story. It was either their own health struggle or health struggle of a family member, a spouse, something like that. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing is we've just have been exploring so many things over the years, trying to figure out how to help my wife get better with chronic Lyme, with parasites, with Epstein-Barr virus, so many of the things that you mentioned there too. And
Mm.
so I love hearing from practitioners, finding out their story, their reason why they have gone on to do great things is they're trying to get better. And in the process, they're helping so many people. So thank you for that work and what you've been able to do. So let's change gears here a little bit. Let's go back to worms because I just can't get enough of the worms. I love talking about the worms. So, why parasites? Why so much focus on worms? I mean, aren't they just a third world country problem? Well, I guess not anymore. Since you were in South America, I guess you brought parasites back up with you and then transmitted them to all of us. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm glad to share. It's interesting because you think about it. It's just like if you cross the border. I grew up in San Diego. If you cross the border, it's like you don't drink the water. I think that was a 40 minutes drive for me. You gotta be careful with the food, and it's like to think that these things have borders is just ridiculous. Not only that,
Yes.
but we have people coming in from all over the world, and we're like, oh, they're in Africa. Like parasites are just in Africa or South America or Asia, but they're not in the United States because we're cleaner. Yeah, you know what? We do. We have a cleaner water source. Absolutely. That's why we don't have near as much disease and these other health issues that these other countries have with those type of things. But the fact of the matter is we ignore the fact that we still have the parasites and they may not be as prolific as what these other countries have. But at the same time, when we ignore them, then it creates chronic illness, which we have the highest rate of chronic illness throughout the world. So what are the causative factors to that? One of the parasites, toxins, right, are two of the main issues there. So um, since we just ignore it and decide, okay, I can't, I do a test that doesn't show positive, well, then we don't have it. No, just that the tests suck. Like they don't come up with it. Like I have a liver fluke, or I have a lung fluke, or I have a blood fluke, or I have another thread worm that's in the small intestine. Well, I can tell you through the research, it's not going to show up in any stool sample test ever. So
Sure.
yep. So the only way to identify those specific ones, like strongyloides, is through a biopsy. And nobody's doing biopsies to identify any of this stuff. So, so then we're just going to blame and say, well, things just happen. This is the medical aspect of, oh, well, they have a thyroid and it's just autoimmune and it just happens. Or they have this disease, it just happens. It's just, wow, it's like magically happening. And I had that conversation in the hospital with my mom one time, the doctor. She was going through a quote thyroid storm, which it wasn't, but that's what they diagnosed her with. And and so I was asking them all these questions, and I'm like, okay, so what's the reason? And it was like, oh, it just happens sometimes. And I just learned, oh, magically happens. Like I don't believe that. That's a cop out for the lack of education and,
Yes.
and the lack of going into why somebody's having a problem. Like this is like the stupidest answers I ever hear. It irritates me.
Yeah.
But then, it's like I have a lot of medical friends, medical doctors that they're the same way. They're just like, they're just done with the system. The system doesn't allow people to get better, and it perpetuates the chronic illness um, and the chronic symptomatology by just giving one med after the next. So it's great to see a lot of people's or mindsets shift through that process. And we've seen a lot of that in the last 4 years after COVID, right? It's been really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, I love seeing that there is a change in how even the public is now seeing all this versus what it was before COVID. There's
Yeah.
much less trust in hospitals and in medical doctors, the, because of what happened during COVID in the pandemic versus what they're versus beforehand where it was trust factor was like 70 some percent. So
Yeah. Dr. Fred Barge wrote a book. I think it was called "Are You the Doctor, Doctor?" or something like that.
mhm.
But his famous quote is, "Be the doctor, doctor. Figure it out. Find out why. Keep asking why until you get to the answer, the root. The cause. Instead of, oh yeah, it just happens sometimes, or it's just just
Yeah,
random chance or something like that. Well, okay, maybe if you were, hit by a bus walking on the sidewalk, okay, that was that was random chance, but there was still a cause to that too, and figure that out. But that's what I love about what as practitioners, it's always a challenge. It's always difficult to find that root cause because there are going to be so many factors. But it's also great when you find somebody's issue and you can address it, and then you can see progress with them. It's amazing. It's another life change. So I'm so thankful for those opportunities. So it sounds like you're in the camp, and I am too, that parasites are an often overlooked cause of chronic illness. And you mentioned lab testing, is not always great. In fact, I remember talking to vet techs who literally would take worms from stool samples from pets, put the worm in the test tube, mail it off to the lab, and the findings would come back negative with a literal worm in the tube. So, okay, you do have a test that's negative, but maybe your test sucks. I think that's a good that's a good way of putting it. But
yeah.
do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had the same experience. I had a patient that brought in a liver fluke. I mean, it was classic textbook liver fluke. I mean, you just look at it by the visual observation. That's that simple. You get a book, manual, you open it up. That's what a liver fluke looks like. Just put it right next to it. Yep, that's a liver fluke. Send it in, comes back negative. It's like, oh my goodness. So it's the systems is just not doesn't work. That's the problem.
Yeah, it can be difficult. So it sounds like you believe that, like I do, parasites are an often overlooked cause of chronic conditions such as Lyme disease, hypothyroidism, autoimmune conditions. What's the link? Why are parasites often going along with some of these other conditions? Why are they part of that?
Well, because it's the impact on the immune system. So I have a patient, they come see me and they're like, oh, here's all the lab testing. They had a stack, big old thick stack of lab tests, positive for Lyme, co-infections, positive for Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus. It's like, what don't they have, right? So if they have that, then there's immune dysregulation. You can't just say they have all these infections. I don't believe that, just based off of tons of the clinical experience. So you have to think, okay, the immune system is not functioning right, which is why these infections are the rampant. So then what's suppressing that? Then I go over to the other side because it's that teeter-totter effect of Th1 and Th2 immune function. And what's suppressing it? Oh, Th2. What drives it up? Oh, parasites. It also what it does is then it causes interleukin 4 and 5 to be released, interleukin 13, interleukin IL-4, interleukin 4 will suppress Th1, and then you also have IgE. So then all of a sudden now people have seasonal allergies or food sensitivities and just reactive to a lot more things. So then if you can get rid of that, then that'll really help to then allow the immune system to function the way it's supposed to. Another thing that can suppress it is mold. If you live in a mold, you're going to have your immune system suppressed, and it's going to be problematic. So you can't just say, oh, it's not all parasites. It could be mold. It could be you live in a place that has high amounts of radiation, like in Wisconsin and the radiant belt, and the water supply, and or radon in
Mhm.
the house type thing, and that can highly suppress immune function and mitochondrial function. So, those are some key aspects to look at when you're considering immune. That makes the biggest difference, I think. Biggest impact.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So those parasites are causing that immune system imbalance, driving one side really high, and then that makes you so much more susceptible to any other thing that wants to come have a party in your body. And so that
Exactly.
long time of immune imbalance causes all kinds of inflammation. And as we know, inflammation is, one of the quote unquote causative factors or, a driver, we'll say, of like 90 something percent of chronic illness out there. And so figuring out that source of where's the fire coming from, what's fueling it, can be so important. So if somebody wanted to find out, or if they thought, okay, maybe I could have a parasite, I went to South America, or I've been in contact with Dr. Todd Watts, one time, I may have sat in a seat that he was in or something like that. I'm kidding. What are some ways that you recommend that people find out if they have, you mentioned parasite testing is not always accurate. What's a good way to find out if someone has parasites?
So it's a difficult thing. One, I look at, you get two of your fingers, you put them up next to your pulse and see if your pulse is working. Yeah. And if you have a pulse, you have a parasite. Like we all have them as part of the microbiome of the body. It just when it gets a little bit out of control, that creates problems. And another thing is you can go to a doctor who specializes in muscle testing and has the knowledge of parasites. If they have the study and research and knowledge like yourself, then you're going to be able to address it. Everybody has them. It's like my kids. I treat them every quarter, every six months of dealing with that. I worked on it myself personally for 18 months straight to clear out what was affecting my immune function and my own health. And then from there, I just do periodic cleanses. So just knowing, is this part of our environment? It's part of what we're exposed to. That's the key element.
Absolutely. Are there any telltale symptoms, something that's, I mean, there's nothing is ever 100%, but something that's almost a giveaway. If you've got XYZ symptom, there's a good chance, that there's some parasitic activity going on there.
Well, almost any symptom. So you could start out with like, oh, chronic headaches. That's one of the major causes, and top cause, number one cause to me is
Mhm.
strongyloids, the threadworm, microscopic parasites. They're about sesame seed size in the small intestine, maybe stomach area. And then the other thing you look at, eczema, skin conditions. So eczema or eczema, however you want to say, pronounce it, that's usually roundworm or threadworm, something that is intestinally based. You clear out, and then their skin clears up. I've had lots of great responses with addressing it that way that people have tried for years. My wife and my kids all had it before. That's one of the reasons why I was working on this stuff was not just my own health and my Lyme disease issues, but also my family's health with their skin stuff and allergies. If you're sensitive to food, you're sensitive to the environment, seasonal allergies. Those are all telltale signs of parasitic infection. Um, grinding your teeth. You can't sit still. Kids get jittery. They can't sit still. They're always moving. They wake up at night a lot. That night terrors, drooling. Those are all symptoms of it, behavioral issues for sure. Depression, anxiety. There's some parasites that cause some of the anxiety and depression um, to occur within the body and the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that is so amazing about, doing foundational medicine, we're not
Mhm.
necessarily treating anxiety, depression, anything like that. That's not in my scope of practice anyway. But it's amazing to see the transformation in somebody when you're helping address some of their body burdens and they're detoxifying. It's amazing what can improve. Even you get what I call happy accidents, things that improve that you don't necessarily intend to, or maybe the patient never told you they had a certain issue. And then they come in and tell you, oh, wow, this is better, that's better. My tendonitis is better, things like that can improve. It's kind of amazing to
Yeah,
see.
that's interesting because my chronic wrist pain that I had on both my wrists that affected me through chiropractic school, that was just like so painful. And once I did the parasite cleansing, that I had 20 years of this pain, it cleared out, gone.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's not necessarily abnormal. That's the type of thing that you hear probably a lot in your practice.
Mhm.
So you mentioned skin issues like eczema, and I think that's such a good transition into the next question I was going to ask you. And the question is about the drainage funnel. And I really love the drainage funnel illustration. And I don't know if that was like unique to Cellcore, but it was the first time I had really seen it illustrated that way. And it's something that I use. I use the poster almost every single day in practice, working with clients. And I love the visual illustration. But how did that funnel come to be? How was it developed? And could you help the listener maybe understand its significance in terms of the detox process?
Yeah, so that was developed based off of clinical experience with Dr. J and I. So we worked with super sensitive people, and his wife being one of them, that was just so sensitive to everything and just really struggled with her health. And so in functional medicine, we were taught, okay, you start with the gut, start cleansing the gut, and that'll take care of 75% of the problems. Like, yeah, it's awesome. Well, the problem is if you start with the gut and start clearing things out, without the drainage funnel being opened up, it creates headaches, it creates skin breakouts, it can create like massive Herxheimer reactions, negative reactions. So an example of that is I had a patient come in. She was having uh, just a lot of issues and fungal candida stuff. She's like, "Hey, can you treat me for candida?" Put her on a product, and this is before Cellcore ever existed. I was my first year practice, like, oh, just following the functional medicine process, right? Just like this is what I was taught, Apex, and this is great. Well, then I see her a month later, and she had gone into the ER because she got boils all over her body or broke out just severe pain issues. And I'm like, well, you should have told me. Well, then I started asking questions. How often do you go to the bathroom? Oh, I go every 7 to 14 days. Like, oh, okay, that's a really
Whoa.
important question to know that if you're not going to the bathroom, you're going to have all kinds of problems. That means it's going to come out through, the byproduct is it's going to come through your skin. It's going to go through your, cough stuff through your lungs. It's you're going to get headaches, all these reactions. So Dr. J, his wife, she'd take something and just have a massive reaction. She was so sensitive to everything. So then we always worked on, okay, we gotta focus on okay, opening up the drainage funnel before we start treating parasites or treating gut stuff. Everybody wants the sexy thing. Oh, look, parasites are so cool. I want to treat that. Like, no, you gotta open up drainage, meaning that they have to be sure they're going to the bathroom. So they either have to do enemas, they have to take magnesium or vitamin C, or we brought a product to market called Bowel Mover. Just you got to do something to get the bowels moving. The next thing is you got to support the drainage of the liver and the bile. And because what happens if the liver is sluggish, there's a thing called the blood bile barrier, meaning that the toxins, instead of dumping out into the small intestine, the bile, it'll go into the bloodstream, and then you also get pruritus, itchy skin, and just uncomfortable. Some people get breakout with rashes. I've had a rash all over my whole body before taking products, and So you learn these things, and that's what helped us create then the drainage funnel. We got to be sure we're thin in the bile. We got to be sure that we're supporting the liver to make sure it's moving everything properly, and the gallbladder is working, and the bowels are moving, and then it'll be easier for then the lymphatic system to drain right into the organs that drain, which is kidney and liver, to support those. So that's why we have a product called kidney and liver support. So that's supporting that process of draining and supporting those organs, and then from there the organs can drain, the cells can drain, everything can go from the top down to the bottom because now it's open to move. If you don't support that and you just like, oh, here's something to give to detox, or here's something to give to kill off, a bug, whether it's candida, bacteria, whether it's parasites, whatever, you could have adverse reactions and not feel well and then not want to do the process. So that's how it was done. It was Jay and I were talking a lot about it, and this guy named the name of Dr. Daniel Newsom, he'd he's working in my clinic, and we put this together, and anyway, we utilized some of his ideas he had been using to form that funnel, and then we customized it and put it together, and then we created the roadmap to health with that process of how do you take a practitioner through that process of taking these patients and working through the way optimally with the minimal amounts of reactions in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the drainage funnel. And I like to think of, detoxification without drainage is almost like if you're trying to remodel your house and you tear out drywall, you tear out flooring, you got all this rubble and debris, but then you don't ever remove it. You just leave it there and you start trying to put up new drywall and you start trying to remodel your house with all the debris still sitting there. It doesn't work too well. And so that's detoxification without drainage. And so drainage is such a key component to having a successful detoxification process to begin with. So I love the idea of foundational medicine, and we've mentioned it a couple times, but I think listeners are familiar with the term functional medicine, but maybe not the term foundational medicine. What's the difference between functional medicine and foundational medicine?
So if you look at functional medicine, what is functional medicine? It's taking a nutrient to support a pathway in the body, right? So it's not necessarily looking at root cause as much as unless there's a severe deficiency in this person. Uh, so foundational medicine looks at what's creating the problem. Why is there a deficiency in the first place? Or why is there a reaction here in the first place? And then addressing and removing that causative factor out so that the body can work the way it's supposed to on its own. A good way to look at that is what your example was just a minute ago. So you're remodeling a house, functional medicine is just you're adding more. You have all that debris in there, but you're just adding more stuff without putting the fire out. So let's say the house is on fire. I'm going to go in there and throw more paint, more wallpaper, more drywall, but the fire's still there. It's not putting it out. So you're just going to continue having the problem. Foundational medicine comes from the standpoint of, hey, let's put the fire out, and then we can then repair all the different things that were damaged from the fire. So if you don't put the fire out, you're never going to have that deep, long success. So that's the approach to treating these chronic diseases, is you're looking at what is creating it, what's the foundation of what's happening here, and then what's the foundational process to get them better. It's not just throwing
Yeah,
nutrients out there, giving them IVs and giving them ozone and all these traditional things that they throw out at them. It's to remove and put that fire out, and then utilize those other things to help rebuild it.
absolutely. And you had alluded to it previously, but I wanted to come back to the roadmap to health because the roadmap to health, it truly changed my practice and it became a game changer for so many of our patients. How was the roadmap to health created? And can you give some insight into the roadmap, like what it is and why it's important to support patients like in a certain order? Why do we do things in the order that we're doing them?
Dr. Jay and I, what we did is we broke down how we were working clinically with our patients that were the
Mhm.
sensitive or the sensitive, right? And so that's how this process was done to make it streamlined for those that are newer and to give them confidence as a doctor. Like, hey, if I follow this roadmap to health, I'm going to help these people that aren't getting help anywhere else.
Mm.
So the first process is the first thing we start with is like let's start opening up drainage, and it's also support mitochondrial function. And that means mitochondrial function is the whole benefits to what proper mitochondrial function is one to get energy, the fuel to fuel all the enzymatic reactions that need to occur. To repair the body, you got to have ATP to make hormones, to activate enzymes, to digest, assimilate. So many things you need energy for. It's also used as an immune signaler. So if you have low mitochondrial function, you're going to have low immune function, which a lot of these people have. So as we regulate the mitochondrial function, all of a sudden now we can handle some of these bugs that are happening because we're signaling our immune system to like, hey, something's going on here. You need to see this. Versus before, just was like, oh, I don't know it's even there. It's all floating around us and not even having any idea there's a, an infection there. And then the other thing is it creates pure water. So all this water processes that we do. And if you have low mitochondrial function, that means there's lots of free radicals that are being made and lots of oxidative stress within the body and low immune function. And then nothing is working well because there's not the fuel for it to work well. So it's puttering around, barely working and functioning. So that's why we start in phase one with mitochondrial function and drainage is to just get the body just to feel a little better and get it to working and like, oh, I can do this. And then as we go into phase two, then we start like with some gut stuff. We're going to make sure that when you're going to the bathroom, we're going to start clearing out some of the parasites and things that could be disrupting mitochondrial function, disrupting, causing lots of byproduct toxicity in the body, creating a lot of the symptomatology. Phase three, we go deeper in the body and the infections that may be, throughout versus just the gut. And we're supporting through that whole process. So we're supporting kidney liver function. First phase is phase one and two. Phase three, we go further down into lymphatic drainage. And then, in phase four, we're going deeper into the body of dealing with toxicity in a deep level. So going higher into binders and clearing out toxins from a systemic realm, and then also looking at maybe there's more deeper systemic infections with Lyme or other of those infections we need to address. But if you address Lyme at the beginning, your body's a lot of times people have negative reactions, and or the fact is it may I've treated so many people with Lyme without ever treating Lyme because they've already done so many things with it. I treated this process and by just balancing the immune system out and getting the toxins out, mitochondrial function working, drainage working, all of a sudden they're feeling better and the Lyme is not near the problematic issue it was before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea of improving mitochondrial function, improving the health of the cell before you go ask your body to do a lot of extra work, detoxifying or, working on immune system activity, helping to get rid of, chronic infections or helping get rid of, whatever might be living there, bugs that might be there that you don't want. Recruit as many cells to your team as you can get because you're going to need them. It's almost like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. You don't fight him the first fighter. You build confidence, you get your skills up, and then you fight Mike Tyson. And so I love the idea of recruiting cells to your team and getting mitochondria working before going after some of the deeper underlying things that are there. So I love the idea of the bioactive carbon technology that's in the products. Can you talk a little bit about the bioactive carbon technology that's in the supplements and what the impact of that bioactive carbon has on detoxification?
Yeah, so in the products, the part of the goal with the binders, with the minerals and the fulvics we have in some of the other products is to help them um, absorb better into the body, buffering them through the digestive system. And part of the difference is like, oh, what makes your fulvic and humic acids different carbons, bioactive carbons different than other ones on the market? And that's the proprietary technology we've used in the past and helping people to understand. Part of it depends on what's active, what's used, what's spent, carbons,
Hmm.
and so things like pH matters, knowing what the pH is, because the higher the pH, the less active carbons or the less active acids, right? The molecules that have the ability to donate the hydrogens are available. There's you look at, is it in the base form or is it in the acid form? So the base form means that it has been spent fulvic or fulvate, fulvate, humate, Those are in the base form, and versus the acidic form, which is the fulvic acid, humic acid. So the lower the pH, the more it helps to buffer than the nutrients through the process of digestion. Also, it provides a lot of those called charged particles. So, like how many charged particles are available to then help the body do its processes. So, a lot of enzymatic reactions in the body, including the whole electron transport chain, is utilizing um, electrons and protons and oxygen molecules. So these biocarbons are able to give at a high rate these donate or accept these molecules to help then buffer many of the systems that are required to get there, whether it's through detoxification in the liver that requires all these things to happen, whether it's in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria that requires the uses of electrons and protons and oxygen. Um, that's the great thing about biocarbon is it facilitates those processes and it then helps to absorb more nutrients.
Yeah, it's like energizing the processes while at the same time it can also bind and help detoxify too. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Because part of the thing of the toxins is what makes them toxic is um, their charge, meaning that what is it? How either um, so is it a +2? Is it a +5 charge? Where is it? How can we neutralize that ion? Some ions are negative, and some ions are positive. If we can neutralize them, then the body can just take them right out. Otherwise, they're going to want to be their ion. They're going to want to attach to something else that they can then bond with and then create problems. Well, we don't want that to happen. We want to go in there, donate those things, and then get them out. So there's a whole biochemical process that occurs that um, is the basis of detoxifying that most people never think of because they're not looking at it from a biochemical or a scientific viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some, going back to parasites just for a moment, what are some common misconceptions whenever or skepticism if you deal with the medical community? I'm sure you've had, like a patient that's seeing other practitioners and they've probably told, hey, I'm doing the such and such parasite cleanse or I'm doing this parasite uh, detox. Do you have any pushback from other medical practitioners or how do you deal with skepticism whenever it comes to the medical community?
So I think the attitude really goes back to you're doing what's right for the patient, and I really don't care what they think. You know what? You're right. The medical doctor is going to tell you, I tell them, you go see your medical doctor, they're going to tell you they don't exist in the United States. Shouldn't be doing this. Like, well, the thing is about a lot of these herbs is they're good and healthy for lots of things. They're
Yeah.
good for your biome, they're good for a whole variety of things. This is not something that there's spices and herbs. It's not something that's going to damage you like a medication would, um, as a possibility. Just that they don't have all the education. They haven't done all the
Hmm.
research. And that's okay. They're good at what they do in crisis management. The Western medicine is great at crisis management. Like something happens, you break your bones, you get in an accident. We're the best in the world. Phenomenal. But with
Absolutely.
chronic disease, they don't quite understand what causes it. So why go to somebody who doesn't even know what's creating the problem? So let's get open. Let's just have an open mind that these could be there and it could be creating your problems.
Yeah.
And if you're open to that, then we can do these cleanses that will help you get better. And whether it's taking out parasites or buildup of fungus or candida or a buildup of other bacteria that's harmful, it's going to cleanse out all of it. It doesn't really matter. And the
Yeah.
whole thing is going to be to get a healthy microbiome. That's my key. It's like, how can we help create a healthy microbiome? And one of our phrases that we've used and trademark was a healthy microbiome is a healthy you. That's what we're focused on.
I
So
like
I
that.
get too caught up on like, hey, we're going to just treat parasites. No, we're just going to treat your body and allow your body to naturally remove what it needs to remove
Absolutely. Restore balance.
for balance. And we're not going to remove all of it.
Absolutely.
We're just going to get the
No,
balance where your immune system is going to do better and your symptoms are going to go away and your body can optimally work and function at the optimal level.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think people's funny business radar goes off when they hear someone talking about full moon symptoms or things being worse around the lunar cycle. And for any person who works in emergency services, like ambulance workers, like emergency room workers, police, firefighters, even um, ask them and they'll tell you like this is real. It's more than just a myth. But why do we see so many more symptoms around the time of the full moon?
Well, that's when the parasites are usually hatching, right? That's when they're going from, a lot of times the roundworms are going from the lungs down into the large intestine. It's this whole process of the larvae maturing and therefore creating problems. And I've seen that with a lot of other uh, kids where they were having severe eczema. And I asked the parents, when are they scratching like crazy? And what's the dates? And like, I had them, log it all in. And it was always around the full moon. They're like, whoa, that's crazy. And then we go through and we help them clear out parasites. And the next thing you know, eczema is cleared up, no more problems. And stuff that they had worked for years with, medical professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I noticed over the years as well. And I even got a barometer, put it on my wall in the office because, I would just monitor the changes in barometric pressure and just kind of keep my eye on that whenever everybody starts walking in with the same symptoms over and over again and be like, oh, wow, the barometer shifted and I'm seeing all these same symptoms and just, correlating that. But it's definitely true. You definitely see those changes happen around the time of a full moon. Do you have any interesting cases or anything you can share with us about a client who's detox parasites and some of the results that have happened? Maybe anything strange or weird?
So, um, well, just I'll tell you, I had some people with chronic sinus issues, and they did some sinus rinses with some of our products. Got a nasty parasites out of their nose, and all of a sudden, all their sinus problems that they had and allergies were gone that they had for decades. Had a girl that was one of the other practitioner up in New York. Literally looked like she was pulling earthworms out of her nose. She pulled like three of them out, and
Just the old case of face worms, huh?
just it was nuts. Um, that was kind of watching the video of that happen. It's like, is that real or not? But it was real, and it just was, yeah, really gross. But a lot of patients of mine, just phenomenal results of. I had one girl could only eat two or three types of food for a couple years, and she had no
Mm,
energy, massive migraines and headaches and fibromyalgia and all those symptoms, and working on her gut and the pair one, the mimosa seed, that was a life changer for her, and she was one of my first
yeah.
patients to use that, and stuff that came out of her was just unbelievable. 2 feet long, 4 feet long, just looks like thick beef jerky and nasty stuff that had been in there for like for years of chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
And then she was able to massively expand her diet, start eating more and not, then she was able to have energy again and be able to be a mom the way she wanted to be a mom. No more headaches and, energy was great. And I just seen that over and over with so many people. I may have included myself of, all my sensitive allergy seasons, all that's gone, and
Yeah.
chronic pain was gone um, and food allergies, sensitivities with dairy and other things that were like awesome because I didn't no longer have that issue anymore. Um, I remember after 5 years, it's like, oh, I had a milkshake for the first time. It was so good. I'd gone 5 years without any dairy at all. And after having gone through these cleanses and stuff, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it a try. It gave me such a debilitating headache and migraine. So, it was, I minimized my exposure massively because I did not like having that. Um, and just see my kids that suffered with eczema for a long time
Hmm.
that cleared up and severe dairy sensitivity, same thing. And I just seen little babies covered head to toe, bleeding faces and stuff that were really sad. I tried a lot of different, the conventional medical route, and
Sure.
nothing worked. And mom had called me up, and we'd taken care of that, and within 60 days, completely clear skin. And what a great thing for those parents. And I remember another case of a 7-year-old, I think it was 7. She was having severe bladder pain and 2 months, and the doctors couldn't figure it out. She's seen all these different specialists, and they said just drink more water that caused more pain. She had a pee, and so I figured out it was probably a parasite that went up when she was in some water. So I talked to the mom, like, were you guys somewhere that weekend that it all started? She's like, yeah, we were in Ohio, Labor Day weekend, and I'm like, oh man, can you imagine the Midwest lakes are nasty by Labor Day? And so I think a Secariae of a parasite went up probably through her ureter into her bladder, and
Mm.
um, yeah, so I had a doctor prescribe a medication, and 3 days later, pain was gone and no more problems.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I like how you said kind of at the beginning, any symptom, it could be so many different things because parasites don't just live in your guts. They can live, all over your body. They can make it into organs. They can make it into different tissues. And we've seen them even make little bubbles, on people's skin, on their face. And so the possibilities are almost endless of what it could cause. So thank you
oh yeah,
for sharing some of that. And those are life-changing results, people that, would have just limped along and struggled through life that now have some health potential back. So thank you for that work. So switching gears a little bit again, moving into your vision or what you see coming down the pipe at us. Are there any upcoming innovations or research initiatives at Cellcore that you're particularly excited about? Anything new coming?
well, we launched some nutrient line. So first time we've had the nutrient line we launched earlier this year, which has been great. And then I'm hoping that we get our what we call our brain line. So stuff to deal with depression, anxiety, sleep, more focus on those type of conditions. Mental health is a big issue
Yeah.
today, and so our goal is to get products out in that direction. Cellcore, this past little bit, we purchased Biocide Botanicals, and they're a great company too that has products that go synergistically with ours, and highly recommend those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what advice would you offer to individuals who are just maybe starting out on their journey towards addressing chronic health issues or through addressing detoxification? Somebody that's just starting out, they're seeking answers or seeking help. What advice would you have for that person?
I think it goes back to going to the basics, and that's what we created the foundational protocol for. Because you have a
Mm.
4 month process that can get you ready for if it doesn't take care of the problems that you're dealing with, at least prepares you to get ready to work with a practitioner by addressing some of the basic root causes of disease, whether it's parasites, Lyme, or dealing with toxins. It opens up your drainage, just prepares the body. And I've had a number of people just with that one protocol itself be life changing for them. And then others that need more in-depth help. There's the comprehensive protocol that's
Mhm.
more like 9 months. Recommend working with the practitioner to work through that. Because when I've worked with people in the past, it's like, okay, we're gonna really upregulate the dosing on some certain things for a short period of time versus the standard two caps a day or two caps twice a day. I'm gonna go up to 10 or 20 caps a day for 6 days and then go off for 3 weeks. And so that's the benefit of working with a practitioner like yourself is that you can help customize and move things, move the needle for these patients as they need it. Um, so that's the process I would take. Use a foundational protocol, get in to see a practitioner that uses the whole process with Cellcore. Some pick and choose,
Yeah.
and the practitioners don't tend to have as good a success um, with their patients as the ones that have used all of our products and um, the protocols.
Yeah, following the roadmap, it makes it simple, and not that you don't may not need to adjust dosage or adjust timing or things like that, but it really simplifies the process. And it was not developed by accident. It was developed through clinical experience, through working with difficult cases, with sensitive cases, and so that's one of the things I love about the roadmap to health. So follow the roadmap. I think is a good is a good
Follow
advice.
follow the road, follow the roadmap, and then always focus on that there is an answer, and just keep that
Mhm.
mindset, positive attitude that this can change, this can happen, and you've
Yep.
gone through this for a reason. and that reason is going to allow you to help somebody else down the road. So as you come
Absolutely.
to your health, you're going to be able to help other people.
Absolutely. So I want to take this opportunity to just say thank you. My wife and I have dealt with chronic health issues ourselves. She struggled with, like I mentioned, chronic Lyme, Epstein-Barr, mold illness, and so many more things. We'd spent so much money, so much time, traveling all over the place, going to different seminars, and working with so many different protocols, supplements, everything like that. But when we started working with the Roadmap to Health, when we started using the Cellcore products, when we started using those protocols, that's when we started noticing some real changes with her. And then we came to our first ECO, and we were able to meet. ECO is a conference that Cellcore puts on, for those of you that don't know, Exponential Clinical Outcomes. And so we were able to meet Dr. Jay Davidson, who you had mentioned earlier, and we were able to meet you. And we were just thrilled to see you guys, to meet you guys and find out you had your own story and your own struggles that you guys had worked with. And you guys were, on similar levels with us, just in terms of what you dealt with and everything. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your dedication to this field of foundational medicine. And also thank you so much for taking the time to join me on Discover Health Podcast. If people want to learn more about you or connect with you somehow, how could they go about that? How could someone find out more about you or connect with you?
That's a good question. I'm not seeing new patients anymore. Um, And so I'm sure there's some videos out there on YouTube, possibly cellcore.com may have some things, but pretty much what I spent my last 4 years doing is educating doctors on helping their patients. So I spend my time in that realm of like, how can I research, find solutions, and then give that to the doctors to help then thousands and thousands of more people. So I'm going to suggest that people reach out to you and doctors like yourself to get the help, because you've been educated through what we're doing and you're always keeping up on the research that we're providing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in to the Discover Health Podcast. Remember, your health is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.